You're listening to Alcoholics Alive, where recovered members of Alcoholics Anonymous share their experience on how they live AA as a way of life. None of our participants get paid or speak for AA. Here are your hosts, Shank and Wayne. Welcome to Alcoholics Alive. Our main purpose is to try to help somebody. So
An alcoholic.
An alcoholic, yeah. There's a lot of drug addicts out there masquerading as alcoholics in AA. But we won't go there today.
Or maybe we will.
Shank, what's our topic?
Our topic today, we are at Season 9, Episode 4. Our topic today is personal inventory. So, Step 4 reads, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. And we have a reading from the book, Alcoholics Anonymous, at page 64. And that's the 4th edition, 2001. And it says, therefore, we started upon a personal inventory. This was step 4. A business which takes no regular inventory usually goes broke. Taking a commercial inventory is a fact-finding and a fact-facing process. It is an effort to discover the truth about the stock in trade. One object is to disclose damaged or unsellable goods, to get rid of them promptly and without regret. If the owner of the business is to be successful, he cannot fool himself about values. We did exactly the same thing with our lives. We took stock honestly. First, we searched out the flaws in our makeup which caused our failure. Being convinced that self, manifested in various ways, was what had defeated us, we considered its common manifestations.
Whoa.
So, we have a great guest today. Bentley, how are you doing?
Great. Thank y'all for having me.
You're welcome. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. So I am an alcoholic, not masquerading anywhere. My
Nice.
sobriety date is April 11th of 2015. I did not choose that sobriety date. I believe I was separated from alcohol that day, in a way that I had no intention of being separated from it by. So, yeah, it was my birthday. Is that what I'm doing? I'm giving a little quick
Yeah,
epic.
let us know how you arrived at Alcoholics Anonymous.
Yeah. In somebody else's car. Because that day was my 30th birthday, and for whatever reason, I was excited about it for the first time in some years, man. And I had no reason to be. There was nothing to support that excitement. It was just a random emotion, I guess. And yeah, I did what I did every day. I woke up and I drank until I, stopped shaking, and felt like I could face the world. Went out and stopped at the liquor store to replenish Granny's vodka, and then grab a bottle of my own with her credit card. Um, then I went to a job interview, and I had enough alcohol in me to appear, hireable. Um, and I proceeded to leave that job interview, go to a bar, continue drinking, um, and after that, it's a little blurry, but I do know what happened. I was told many times and reminded, and um, but I left that bar, came to, there's a car in front of me, and I swerved and just barely clipped it. It really wasn't that big of a deal. She jumped out the car all worried, and I said, "Hey, look, there's a AutoZone around the corner. We'll go get you a tail light. It's not a big deal." And then she said the words. She said, "We need to call the cops." And I
Uh-oh.
and I said, "I've actually already called them. Let's move off the road." And I just took off, man. Just bolted. And I remember that. I do not remember how I got to where I was the second time, but 10 minutes later, same exact thing happened. I came to with the car in front of me and just slammed right into that one, man. I totaled my grandmother's car. I totaled that car, and or I didn't I totaled two cars and hit a third. And I do remember the conversation when the cops showed up. They said, have you been drinking? And I just, for the first time ever, uh, I was done, man. And I just looked at him and I said, I drink every day. And he said, well, how much have you had to drink? And I just said, it's always too much. And I said, let's go. And that was it. They put me in the back of the cop car and they detoxed me in jail. And I did bail out. I made a lot of phone calls and nobody would answer them. My mom normally would at least say no. She wouldn't even answer the phone to say no. Um,
Hmm.
it had gotten pretty bad. And a buddy bailed me out. It took him a few days because he wasn't sure if it was the right thing to do. And I just knew I needed to go to Alcoholics Anonymous. Like I needed to go to AA. I didn't know if it was going to work. I'd been there before. I did know that people were joyful and living good lives there who had problems. And so I didn't have a lot of hope. But at that first meeting, I think they recognized I was new and someone described their story a little bit. And they put into words the feelings and the questions and the idea of something might be wrong with me and I don't know what it is. I mean, sure, drinking's a thing, but if you knew how I felt when I drank, you'd want me to drink. You'd drink too. Um, so that can't be it. I can't figure out why I keep making these mistakes. I have no idea. It's not my plan. And they put that into words, and for the first time ever, I thought there might be something here. And that was, a little over 9 years ago. Turns out it was true.
You were rough on your grandma, man.
Yeah,
Did
that
she
poor
was she
woman.
more was she more worried about her car, or you taking her vodka?
She would get equally angry about things. Uh, she didn't really have to go very far. I would
Right.
do all her grocery shopping because I could fit in a trip to the bar in between that. And so I kind of did everything for her. I was, of a lot of service
So
with
that
her money.
justified. Yeah.
Yeah, with her money and her car, living in her home.
All
So
right.
no, she was pretty pissed about the car. That was the second one of hers that I had totaled. Uh,
Nice.
yeah, it wasn't. God, it wasn't.
Tell us your initial experience on step 4 when you first got sober, took the steps.
And yeah, I was thinking about that when I got this topic. I've done a lot of inventories, and I've done them a lot of different ways. And the first one I did was in a treatment center. It was a checkbox packet. Write down some things you're shameful about, and some things you're mad at, and um, does this affect your self-esteem, your pride, ambition, security, etc. So it was a checkbox inventory, and it was okay, and I took it seriously. I mean, when I was there, I was sold on the idea that I had to do something. But then, I finished that inventory and we did a fifth step, and it was with some guy that came in and he just said, tell me a little bit about your story. And so we didn't even talk about my fourth step. And then I had completed a fifth step and graduated rehab. So that was my first experience with it. Um, but I did come back to a sponsor and we did an inventory, out of the big book. And I did gain a lot of relief, and I did feel like I belonged. I felt lighter, if you will. But I don't know that today I could say, like, when I do inventory, I have a much different objective than those things I just mentioned. I
Everybody
just
went
thought you were
quiet.
I thought you were asking questions, so
I was getting ready to,
that was the end of
I,
that answer.
everybody went quiet on us there. What happened? Everybody's in deep reflection and taking their own inventories.
I hope so.
Here's an oddball question for you. How many pages should a fourth step be?
How many pages should it be?
Yeah.
Depends on how angry you are, man.
That's a good answer.
Yeah. Uh,
Depends on how many
yeah.
resentments you have.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a
So,
subjective question.
yeah, there's no set answer on that one. Did you put yourself on your fourth step?
I have as a as a recommendation, and then it's found real hard to figure out how to make amends to myself later. Um, but I've done it in ways that I could find exercises to explore some inventory, right? To see what is blocking me. So, you know, I don't know that it is accomplished. Like, I don't have any great moments right now that I could share with you that I said, man, I put myself on my inventory and whew, guess what I found out about me that I didn't already know, you know?
Right. The Shank's having problems with her microphone. That's part of what
And
happened
that's what
there.
happened. Okay.
I see that now. We'll get her back into the show here in a few minutes. So the big book says the fourth step is an effort to face and be rid of the things inside ourselves that block us off.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, did you have that experience in any of the inventories you've done where, you kind of get to the truth of stuff and realize that, man, this is part of the cause of my problem?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Without question. Um, I had done those inventories that I talked about initially, and I found myself around 18 months or so sober. And I got to tell you that speaker tapes and speakers, like I'm big on those. And so I listened to a lot of them, and I would listen to inventory workshops and just all kinds of things, man, because I just, you know, I, I'm obsessive. And I just came to a place where I had this moment where I realized, or maybe God put it in me, that it was just, I don't think I'm really on board with the God idea and the objectives of these steps as we're reading them in the book. I mean, I'm working the steps like they're described in meetings, right? I'm working the wall steps. And and that could have been a term, that triggered me, that it was like there's wall steps and then there's book steps. You know, and
Mm-hmm.
uh and I
Off the
just kind
wall
of
steps.
yeah. And I just came to a place where I kind of became aware and a little bit terrified. And I was like, I don't know that based off of what I have done, I will, I will obtain any kind of long-term sobriety. Like, I knew there
Hmm.
was more and I just, maybe I wasn't ready for it. Maybe I didn't see it. It definitely wasn't explained to me. But I just knew that there was something else that needed to be done. And so I got a new sponsor, and we went through this stuff, page by page, question by question, and really got into the book, and tried to figure out what it meant and what it was saying and what we're supposed to do. So
Yeah.
yeah, my experience with inventories these days. Oh, hey, we got you back.
Shank is back in the room.
I love that.
One thing I like about this reading that when I was newly sober, it was just I was doing whatever I was told to do. And
Mhm.
there's definitely something to be said about that. I don't know that I was incarcerated, so I was doing what I was told to do, and it just wasn't going like deeper and deeper and deeper, and that was fine. There was a period of time in my sobriety where I really felt like in order to stay sober, I have to get down to like what exactly my mom said to me when I was 16 and things like that. And my experience is that when I became a small business owner, reading this was just a little bit different. And in my business, if I like how this says, like, we disclose damaged or unsellable goods, get rid of them promptly and without regret. And that's helped me in all areas of my life. Like, it's like, hey, I don't regret having this or doing this. It's not profitable, getting rid of it, starting fresh, starting new. And that's what I do with my life. I cannot fool myself about values. So if I've been doing something and I've been sober for however long and I'm going through a four step and it just isn't working for me anymore, then I just get rid of it without regret. And I say, I'm turning another page. I'm doing something different today. So I love how simple this is. Now I can complicate anything, you know. I need to do this with a sponsor so that I can take stock honestly, but I've found that I don't have to, me personally, this is not asking me to go so deep, deep, got to get deeper. I'm a PhD AA member now. Um, and I know when I take meetings into prisons, like those women are looking to get and stay sober. They're not looking, I'm not a mental health counselor, thank
Yeah.
God.
Well, that's a good thing, Shank.
Yeah,
Yeah. You can go deeper on the 11th step.
that's right.
People love doing that. One of the interesting things to me in the book is where it says resentment's the number one offender.
Mhm.
That's kind of the Bentley's point about how long the fourth step is. It depends on how angry you are, right?
That's right.
But it says something in there that from resentment stem all forms of spiritual disease. For we've been not only mentally and physically ill, we've been spiritually sick. When the spiritual malady is overcome, we straighten out mentally and physically. It's a very powerful statement, an interesting statement, because it seems like we should straighten out physically and mentally first and then straighten out spiritually. But the book and the steps are designed to take care of our spiritual malady, our spiritual condition, which helps us to have a foundation to take care of other stuff. So I'm curious, Bentley, if you got any comments on that comment about straightening out spiritually first.
Oh, sure. Um, I love that it's written that way. And, you know, it maybe I couldn't see it, or maybe I just wasn't, willing to see it. But it seemed to me that a lot of what I heard and saw was, hey, take your time, get this stuff together, give it time, and then we'll worry about your higher power or God, or whatever it is that you need to do to increase spiritually. You can go deeper, at in meditation and whatnot. The problem that I have, and this is me, maybe not everyone else, but the inventory the sole purpose, really, when I'm doing inventory, is to get unblocked, right? Like there's a line in there stating that we're blocked, and I can't get right spiritually, and I'm not going to pursue any kind of spiritual life. The the more that I'm just obsessed about myself. And so those common manifestations of self are what it's my problem. I'm selfish, I'm self-centered, it's the root of my troubles. So I'm digging for roots, I'm cutting branches is great, but they grow back and it's fine. But if I dig out the tree, the view's a lot clearer, right? And so that's been my primary aim at any inventory I'm doing is we're searching for roots. I want to get unblocked from me so that I can connect with my God better and then see what, where that takes me. Does that answer your question? Okay.
It does. What did Bill say? Root and branch?
Root and branch.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
When it goes on to say, this is the part that I think has been most important for me in my sobriety, Referring to our list again, putting out of our minds the wrongs others had done, we resolutely looked for our own mistakes, where we've been selfish, dishonest, self-seeking, and frightened. Though the situation had not been entirely our fault, we tried to disregard the other person involved entirely. Where were we to blame? The inventory was ours, not the other man's. When we saw our faults, we listed them. We placed them before us in black and white. We admitted our wrongs honestly and were willing to set these matters straight. And for me, there was a number of years, I probably just heard it and picked it up, where I would talk about, what is my part? What is my part? What is my part? And somehow, probably even still today, I can make my part less than yours, if we both have a part here.
That's
And
right.
that's not actually
That's
what
right.
we're aiming to do. So looking for my own mistakes, and this has helped me a lot, I think, over the years with family specifically, my family of origin, if you will, to see like, how can I have relationships? What can I do? What are my mistakes? Where have I been selfish, dishonest? And really being able to, this is why I have to have a sponsor, is because it'll creep back in. I'll be like, yeah, but when I was growing up, I should have had parents that did this and this. And it's like, no, we're putting that entirely out. We're not even considering that at all. That has nothing to do with what we're doing here. And with what we're doing here in AA, listen, I've done a lot of other stuff. The state of North Carolina required me to do a lot. But the reason why I'm still sober today is because I was looking for my own mistakes and seeing where I was wrong, where I was selfish, dishonest, self-seeking, frightened, where I was to blame, and correcting those.
This is a game changer here. I mean, this is really the meat and potatoes of the inventory, right? Is putting out of our minds the wrongs others had done. I never did that before I got sober. I mean,
Why would you?
everybody had done wrong. I didn't do anything wrong. It was always, I mean, anything that happened to me, I could point to somebody else's fault. And I mean, when I came across this and when I took the steps, I mean, it shook me pretty hard because, I never thought about laying aside what I thought other people did to me. I mean, that was just kind of the way that I lived. I mean, you did something to me, I was going to do something to you. You did something to me, I was always going to remember it. And there was like this, keeping score thing that would go on. And I actually, when I said this before, when somebody came to me and said, "Hey, you don't have to keep score. You don't have to keep judging and fighting other people," it was a damn relief to me. I mean, I just thought that's how you lived. And when somebody told me that you could give that up, which I think is kind of happens in the third step, but I'd never heard anything like that before. I got immediate relief just from the concept of not worrying about what other people were doing. But when I answered these questions, I mean, I really saw how selfish I was. I saw how almost everything that ever happened to me, I would argue almost everything that ever happened to me was my fault. I did something. I know there are exceptions on stuff, but I made a decision or put myself in a place for a lot of that stuff to happen. And even some things that happened to me when I was a kid that I really had no control over, here I am 20 years later, still worrying about it. That's my fault.
Yeah. Yeah.
Instead of moving, trying to move past it.
Another question lately that I've gotten from a lot of new people are like, well, I'm going to put myself on my fourth step. Like, how do I put myself on there? And listen, I really don't have any opinion on that, but my experience has been that my first sponsor, and probably all of my sponsors I've had, have told me, like, don't do that. But the general idea is that when I refer to my list again and I see where I've been selfish, dishonest, self-seeking, frightened, where I was to blame, those are typically my resentments against myself because I've behaved in ways that are against my values or who I want to be, that I've done things while drinking, that I wouldn't normally do. And so that's been really helpful to me, to kind of think of it that way. Like, sure, at this point, that's typically what I will tell new people is like, hey, you'll get to that. Put yourself on there if you want, but my resentments with myself are typically tied to someone else. My behavior with someone else,
Yep.
something that I think they've done to me and I've retaliated, or I've done something or said something. It's usually that I've said something. I didn't pause when agitated or doubtful. Um, but what do you think, Bentley? Where do you put yourself? Do you put yourself on your fourth step?
I have in the past. And I don't know, the focus really wasn't on necessarily how I reacted so much. But I would put myself in and be like, hey, I'm resentful at myself. Why? Because I'm fat, you know, I'm out of
Yeah.
shape, I'm
Right.
lazy, right? Like those are things that are that showed up on the myself inventory. And when considering it carefully in the third column, like how does it affect my self-esteem? And it's like, well, I'm supposed to be fit, right? Like I'm supposed to be the soccer star that I was in high school. And, that's gone. What happened? And so uh the result of all those things really, there wasn't, like I said, I couldn't make amends to myself. I mean, I guess technically somehow I could, right? Go to the gym and we'll call that making amends to yourself. Um, But at the end of the day, what it brought me to a point was that of my own power, this is what I get. I'm looking at myself on paper without any help. And in that fourth column, I'm able to see how the fear is driving that delusion or dishonesty. That's driving then the 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 self-centered thinking that's then driving the actions. And so if I can't overcome fear on my own power, then like I have to have God take me past here. I need I need a power. And that's what doing that has brought me to, but I can do that and get there with those same things without putting myself on an inventory, right? I can look at my fourth column with all the other people on the list and I can see it all right there. Well, I say that I can see what I can see. One thing that you mentioned was having a sponsor to guide you through that. Like that is, you know, I I did a it's important to me when it says that we need to find someone who knows what we are trying to do, right? And what I'm trying to do is see past what I can see. I need to find what's blocking me from God, and I can't always see that kind of stuff. I can see that I'm selfish. I can I can put that I have selfish thinking. I can write down the actions that I did, and I can even look at some of the fears around them. But I can't always just see the other side. Like where it says, like um, Jerry just quoted it. We let go of the other person's faults absolutely and looked at where we had made the mistakes.
Hmm.
Like I don't really always have the ability to do that. When you tell me, hey, you don't have to keep score, I'll look at you like you're crazy because, you know, I may not have to keep score, but let me tell you, I
Right.
like to keep score. And I just I'll give a little example. Had my if that's okay, do y'all want me to do that? I'm sure piece inventory. Is that all right?
Go
Go
ahead.
for it.
Yeah, yeah. So my
Tell us your fifth
ex
step.
yeah, my ex-wife's husband, right? Why am I mad at him? He's man, he makes a lot of money. He's got a house. He is involved in my kid's life. Like he's everything that I'm not. And he won't give me the time of day. Like I'm trying to hear, for me, in my mind, he's the reason I'm not with my son, right? More often. And he's just better than me than every way there is. And I'm doing a fifth step with a woman and she's asked me some questions and um And so, and then I go through that third column, I go through the fourth column with, the selfish, the dishonesty, the fear, the self-seeking. And she just hit me in the gut, man. And she said, "You're the luckiest man alive." And I just, I stopped for a minute and said, "What do you mean?" And she said, "This man is not even your child's father. And he's involved in that kid's life. Your kid wants for nothing. Your son is well taken care of. What's that? He's in baseball and private school. And, and today, even further, they're divorced right now. And he's still involved in my kid's life. Like, because they have a daughter. And so, like, this man is my hero today because he did for me what I couldn't do, or he did for my son what I couldn't do for my son. And he did it with a smile on his face, man. And I remember I went to a baseball game and I was going to make all these amends to him. And he just looked at me and he said, "Hey, I just never gave you the time of day. And I'm sorry." And my God, I mean, just tears coming out of my face. Like I couldn't do that. My fourth column couldn't do that, right? God had to show up in that space.
Just for
So,
clarity, the fourth
So
column you speak of is when we refer to our list again.
my fourth column in my inventory is where were my mistakes?
Got it.
so the inventory helped you see the truth.
Yeah, oh yeah. A truth that
Yeah,
I couldn't see.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's what it's done for me in lots and lots of situations like that. Helps us see the truth. Is there a fourth column though?
There is on mine
All right. You do the extended fourth column with the fifth column?
with the fifth column. God,
You're
you
not
got me
familiar.
lost.
You're not
No, I'm
familiar with
not.
the extended fourth column. You're
I'm
not
not.
one of those. Okay, good. That's good. I always like the question about the fourth column because I've never actually seen a fourth column in the book.
Sure.
Yeah, I
That's
understand that. I understand we've got a paragraph with those questions that we answer.
that go down in black and white.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's the
yeah,
one.
yeah. No, I know we call that the fourth column in AA. I understand that
Yeah, yeah.
that's the term, but I always like getting the big book purist going by saying it's not really a fourth column. There's not a fourth column in the book. The other thing that I'm getting off track, but the other thing I like is when people talk about they can't be resentful at themselves. I
Uh-huh.
love this line in the book, page 66. Listen to what it says. To conclude that others were wrong was as far as most of us ever got. The usual outcome was that people continued to wrong us and we stayed sore. Sometimes it was remorse and we were sore at ourselves.
Mm.
The book frickin' says that we
You
get
get
mad at
permission.
ourselves. I
You
don't
get
care what anybody
permission.
says. That's what the book says. And people will want to talk about, well, you got to believe this in the book. You got to believe this in the book. And then I'll read that to them. Oh, well, that doesn't, no, that don't count.
Yeah, we get to pick. We get to pick and choose which parts now. Is that how that works?
Yeah. So anyway,
Yeah.
I think the inventory in the book is perfect the way it's written.
But you know
And it
what?
works just fine.
If you're listening, just write it down. Use the example, don't use the example. Use the fourth column, don't use the fourth column.
That's right.
It says we put it down black and white. Do whatever you need to do. Just write the inventory.
Yeah.
That's right.
That's the worst thing you can do is not do it.
That's right.
Oh God, it's God. I got experience with that too. I mean, it just eats me up. That line where it says we couldn't wish it away.
Yeah. You can't.
I mean, I'll just walk around trying to wish resentment away. I'll just wait it out, and then maybe I'll just act a little differently, and then she'll act differently, and then it'll all be okay in time. And I have zero evidence to support that. If I'm not writing some kind of inventory, whether talking about a 4 step or 10 step, or 11 step, then it doesn't go away. It
Yep.
just it just boils and festers.
My least favorite is after I've done a fourth step or worked all the steps through something, and then years later, that person comes to me or sends an email or something and wants to meet up and doesn't give me any context what they want to talk about. That's my least favorite.
That's tough. So what about the sex inventory? The similar questions to the resentments.
Hmm.
I mean, my own personal experience with it is it really helped me get at the truth as well about a couple of relationships I was in by answering those questions where we'd been selfish, dishonest, inconsiderate. Where did we unjustifiably arouse jealousy, suspicion, or bitterness?
That's the one.
Yep. Where were we at fault? Well, I know you did that one, but here's one of the best questions ever. What should we have done instead? I mean, that's it's interesting, and it helped me also. It talks about shaping a sane and sound ideal, writing those ideals out about how I want to be in the future and what kind of relationship I want to be in. Helped me.
Hmm.
So the interesting thing too about 4 is there's 2 places in there where it basically says we should be kind of doing step 8. Right? I mean,
Oh, yeah.
after we do what y'all call the 4th column, the it says at the end of that, we admitted our wrongs honestly and we're willing to set these matters straight. That's referring to step 8.
Mm-hmm.
And then on the sex inventory, we must be willing to make amends where we've done harm. In meditation, we ask God what we should do about each specific matter. The right answer will come if we want it. So that's it's telling us that we should take all the people that we've harmed into meditation and ask for the right direction on what we should do about each one. It's interesting.
I mean, it's powerful. It's more than interesting. It'll change you.
Yep.
You want some experience on that one too, or no?
No, well, it's up to you.
Okay. I
We don't
mean,
want you to. We don't want you to undress yourself in front of everybody here, but
oh, I,
that's
that fear is gone. It's one of my favorite things to do, which is maybe weird for some folks, but for me, I love it. All right, so the harm. These are funny with the relationships because a lot of times I have heard or have been told, you just shouldn't have gotten into that relationship to begin with, right? Should have made a better choice. That was your fault. But you know, so I had cheated on that ex-wife that I mentioned, and it would have been easy and probably okay to write I shouldn't have cheated on her. But in that meditation portion that you talked about, carefully considering it and really asking God for direction, what came from that um, was that I should have been, um, I should have been more of a man. I should have been willing to have a tough conversation, one that was, vulnerable and fearful and naked, like, and say, like, hey, I don't think that this is working out. And come up with an exit strategy and do it in a loving way. Right. Like that became part of an ideal,
mm,
right? That was molded and, you know, by this higher power, this God that I like to call it, that I didn't come up with myself. That I clearly, if I did and was able to live up to that stuff, I would have, but that's not what happened.
yep.
And that was powerful for me. And that made an amends with her very, very different than,
Hmm.
hey, shouldn't have cheated on you. I'm sorry.
Yep. Yep. That's why it's in there.
Yeah.
All right. Shank, you want to move on to meeting shrapnel?
Let's move on to meeting shrapnel. All right, Bentley, we have our segment of meeting shrapnel, which is lore, myth, and sayings frequently heard in AA. Our first meeting shrapnel is expectations are premeditated resentments. What do you think about that?
I don't know that I have an opinion on that. I mean,
Oh, sure you do. Come on.
God, expectations are premeditated resentments.
Straight from the clubhouse.
Yeah, I mean, it is. And I guess, and I don't know how that helps anybody. Are you just telling me to never have expectations? It's a good idea. Suppose.
Good theory.
Yeah, I mean, premeditated resentments. I don't wake up every day trying to figure out how I'm going to become angry to somebody. I just, they step on my toes and I retaliate.
Yeah. Well, Shank, where did you get this one?
That's a great question. This could have been off of the Reddit, Alcoholics Anonymous Reddit, favorite sayings in AA.
Mm-hmm. I've heard it before. Bentley, have you ever heard it?
Not once.
No. Yeah, I've heard it, but it's been a long time. I guess if you had some real serious expectations of how somebody was going to act today, and you could be setting yourself up for resentment, but I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, premeditation means planned.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. It's dumb. I don't know what else to say.
What do you... Yeah,
okay. Stop using it. Oh, my goodness.
Bentley, do you want to keep it or scrap it?
Oh, we're scrapping that.
I'm scrapping it.
It's out of here. All right, our next meeting shrapnel is you will never get ahead as long as you keep trying to get even.
Okay, well, that valid point, I suppose. Put this in my little... you got some kind of calendar somewhere with little sayings, to help you through your day or something.
Is that a request? Do we need to see that?
Yeah.
One of those counters where you pull off the day and it shows you a new one now. I don't know, Shank. You will never get ahead as long as you keep trying to get even. Now, it's pretty clever. These all kind of tie into the fourth step, don't they?
They do, yes.
Sure. Well done.
Yes.
Yep. Okay. But this one here is just flat out just stupider than... You know what? You will never get ahead as long as you keep trying to get even. So, I guess stop trying to get even with people. Stop holding grudges. Stop keeping score. There you go, Bentley. Don't keep score.
Boom.
How about that? Dang,
we can put it on a plaque, maybe hang it up somewhere on the wall.
We might could sell it to clubhouses if we
put it
on a nice board.
We'll collect all of the shrapnel and put it in a calendar.
That sounds like a April 11th gift or something.
That's right. That's right. 10 years, that'd be on your 10-year anniversary.
That's right.
Yeah, that's a nice one.
Do you want to keep it or scrap it?
Where am I keeping this?
If you keep it, then we're going to come to your home group and say it. And say that
nice.
Told us to use
tonight.
Yeah, the anniversary. That'll be good.
Or better yet, we're going to get one of your speakers to start using it tonight.
That's right.
How about that?
That's good. We're
going to join your home group, change the opening readings to include this.
Yes.
I like that. I mean, my opinion is going to be pretty much, if it's not in the book, it doesn't belong there. But, we're going to scrap that one.
All right. What do you think, Jerry?
Oh, it's out. I'm scrapping it.
It's out of here. All right, and our third meeting shrapnel is emotions are not instructions. Pulling out all the stops for y'all today.
Wow. Yeah, okay.
Emotions are not instructions.
If they were, I'd be in jail. My nickname would be Shank. Emotions are not. I feel like this is something that, I would say at daycare when I'm scolding my child or their, the other child together. How much meeting shrapnel have y'all kept? I've got that. That might be off topic for a second, but
Not much.
Not much. Not much.
Yeah, that one's probably got to go.
Emotions are not instructions. It's got to be straight out of some kind of IOP group therapy meeting or something.
Believe it.
Yeah, hang that one up next to triggers.
That's right. It reminds me of frothy emotional appeals seldom suffices, right?
Yep.
Oh, that's
right.
better. That's a better way to say it.
Agree.
Emotions are not instructions. Well, I don't have to think much about it. I don't know what they're. I mean, if it's kind of ties into, don't trust your feelings, only trust your actions. I like that, but
Feelings are not facts.
Feelings are not facts. That's
Feelings
the one I
are
was
not
trying.
facts. Yeah,
That's the one I was trying to think of. We need to
But
add that to the list.
I
Or did
believe we
scrap
already
it?
scrapped it.
All right. Well, Bentley. You want to keep this or scrap it?
oh man, it's got to go. It's got to go. I might, I'm trying to imagine saying that to a spot, or my wife. That'd be good,
Say it
We're
to
just
you. Say
having
it
a
to your
heated
wife
argument. Yeah,
and
You
let
think
us
that's-
know.
that's probably a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
Then you can ask her about her poor stuff.
That's right. So we want you to say it to her today, and we want to follow up on how it
And
went.
report back. Yeah,
Report back.
I'll report back at the 9th step, I suppose.
Nice.
There you go. All right. I'm scrapping it. Shank?
Yeah, let it
It's
go.
out of here.
All
Let
right.
it go.
3 for 3 out of here.
I don't think we've kept much of anything this season. Bentley, we appreciate you coming on and sharing your experience with us.
I'm really grateful. Thank y'all for having
Yep.
me. This was fun.
Yep, we appreciate it. And if you're out there listening, thank you. Send us some suggestions, comments at freedom@alcoholicslive.com. In the meantime, take a 4th step, a personal inventory, and be free.
Freedom.
Thanks for listening. If you have a comment, suggestion, or just need help, you can email Shank and Wayne at freedom@alcoholicsalive.com. Remember, we're recovered members of Alcoholics Anonymous, but we do not speak for Alcoholics Anonymous, nor do we get paid. Join us next week for another great episode.